building our first workflow, working with workflows, actions, publishing the workflow, and then executing it, and also integrating it with the Paradym wallet. So let's start in the Paradym dashboard. If you've created your account, you will get on this overview with like an empty page. I have already some workflows in my dashboard. And the first thing we can do is we can create a workflow, because everything in Paradym is based on workflow executions and building workflows. So I can, for example, let's start with a very simple one. Is if I start with an example workflow, I create one, I give it a name, and a very simple, basic workflow template will be created. Once you're done writing your workflow, you can publish it. And once it's published, you can go to the execution step to execute a workflow. So once I execute it, this is just like an empty workflow. You can see it will immediately go to completed because there's no input, there's no actions to be taken, but we have completed the workflow execution. So that's the basic steps of like you write your workflow, you save it. Once you have published it, you can start executing it and running your workflow as many times as you want. So what we actually want to do now is we want to start building a workflow that actually does something. So the Paradym documentation has a lot of actions on, let me see if has a lot of documentation on building workflows and actions. So when you start building, I definitely recommend you to go to docs.paradym.id. And there's general outline on like, how do you build a workflow? What are the different components involved, which Anna already mentioned a while ago, like the name, the triggers, the actions. It has some workflow examples. Then we have actions, and the actions are all the different things you can currently do. In the future, we have intentions to add like that you can write your custom actions. So you can write some code to add your custom functionality to Paradym. And we will also have like a marketplace where you can install other actions. For now, we have this default list of actions and are working to expand that, which allow you to do the basic credential exchange interactions. And another thing that I definitely recommend to check out is the example workflows. In the example workflows, there's some common scenarios which you can use as a basis to build on top of. So we can start with a simple one, which is creating a credential template. And a credential template is the combination of a schema and a credential definition. And we need to create these to define which properties are in the credential that we are going to issue. And we usually only have to execute this once. So for this workflow, I can just copy it, and I can then go back to my created workflow, and I'll just paste it in. And basically what we have here is we have a workflow to register a credential template. We can trigger it through the API, which you can also trigger manually through the UI then. Later on, we'll get to some more advanced trigger types. We define some of the input. This one is quite complex because we just allow you to copy paste it and allows you to define some input fields, such as the attribute names, the name of the workflow, a version, and also on which network we want to deploy it to. Then we have the two actions, which is creating a schema, and then we also create a credential definition. So workflows will also always execute the actions in order. So we have the top one here. This one will be executed first. And then once the top one is completed, this action will be executed. Using the $sign, you can reference variables in your workflow, which, for example, if we have defined in the input a property named attribute names, then we can reference the attribute names by using $.input and then referencing the attribute names. We can do the same for the output of other actions. So the create schema action, once it has completed, we can reference the output of that action as the input to another action. This makes that workflows, like actions in a workflow, can build on top of each other to fulfill the whole flow. So in this case, once the schema is created, I want to create a credential definition executed. So let's save this, publish it. And if I again now go to the execution step and manually execute it, it now has an automatically generated form in which I can provide all the input values. So let's say today we want to create a Paradym event attendee credential, and we can register it. For now, we'll do it on the check testnet. You can use on the free tier, only the testnet is available. For all the paid tiers, you can also write to the main nest, which is really meant for more the production use cases. We can provide a version, and then we can provide the attribute names. For now, I'll do the event and the date on which you attended the event. And then I can execute the workflow, and then it will start executing. So the first state, like last time, it went to complete it immediately, but now it will start running because it will start running the first action. Once that's completed, it will automatically go to the next action. So if I click on an execution, I can see the latest info. So I can see which of the input I provided, and I can also see the output of the different actions. So now it has completed. The create credential definition is also done, and I can copy this. And for now, I'll just copy it, and we'll later reference it when we start to actually issuing a credential. All right. So with that in place, next thing we're going to do, we're going to build a workflow that actually issues a credential, and I'm going to build it from scratch because that will also show like the editor, the online workflow editor that we have, and how it helps you in building workflows with its suggestions. So we want to create a workflow that issues a Paradym event attendee credential. Give it a name. I'll create the workflow, and then again we have an empty workflow. So I'll keep these as is. And for this workflow, we don't need any input. We'll just make a very simple credential, and we'll just use some actions. So if you have an action and you type dash and then a space, it will give you suggestions on which actions you can execute and like you can add. And the first thing we want to do is we want to create a connection with the Paradym wallet. That's where we're going to issue the credential to. And so we'll call the create connection action. This is a very simple action. And so it also doesn't require you to provide any attributes, but I could provide extra attributes here to, for example, say, I want to provide an image URL, so a wallet could render that, or I could provide a label that is shown to other parties if I don't want to use my default theme name. For now, I'll just use it as is. And once I've created a connection, I want to issue the credential. I'll again do the dash, I press issue credential, and it will autofill a big part of what I need to do to issue a credential. One thing we need to provide that first now is a connection ID, and we just created this with this action. And as I explained in the previous workflow, we can reference the output of previous actions by using the $sign. And I can reference actions, then I can reference the ID of the action, so the one we use here. I'll copy that. I can go to the output, and this one has a connection ID. And the structure of the output can be found in the Paradym docs. So if I go to
autocomplete also for that in the editor?
Currently, no. We will add that in the near future to add autocomplete for these as well. So there's autocomplete for the input, but for variables that have been referenced, there's no autocomplete
Okay.
yet. Yeah, so if I go to the docs.paradym, you can see in the action list, if you define, choose the action. So I'm now issuing credentials. You can see the issue credential, or actually this is the create connection. I can go to the specific action, and here I can see also documentation for the input, and I can also see the output. So the output contains a connection, and the connection will then have a connection ID of value string. So now I know that I can reference that here. And then the second thing is I want to issue an ANOCREDS credential. Currently, Paradym only supports issuing ANOCREDS credentials, which is a specific credential format. If you know what it is, then that's good. If you don't know, just use ANOCREDS, and that's also good. So again, I can get suggestions here, and the fields I need to provide are the attributes and the credential definition ID. The credential definition ID we created in the previous workflow, and I copied the output credential definition ID from there, and I'll just paste that in here now, because we know it will always be that credential definition ID. The second one are the attributes. So I created the credential template with two attributes, which were the event. This is the Paradym live building session. And we had a date. The date today is 19 September 2023. And with this in place, I have now everything to create a connection and then issue a credential based on the credential template. I will save it, publish it, and I can now, again, execute this workflow through the UI. So what we see now, if I execute this workflow, it will go into an on-hold state. And this is something which Paradym handles for you, is that not all flows, such as like when creating a credential template, are like completed directly. Sometimes we need flows that are dependent on other tasks, other systems, or something a user performs. In this case, we want to connect to a user wallet. And so the workflow won't complete until we have created a connection with the wallet. So we can do that by usually scanning a QR code. If you integrate through the API, you would normally embed this onto your web page, for example, and create a QR from this. So in this case, I have a very handy tool that generates a QR for me, and I can directly scan that with the Paradym wallet. So if I open my phone here on the side, I have the Paradym wallet open, and I can show the QR code. And I can scan that with the Paradym wallet in this case. Once I've done that, it will start loading the invitation, and the workflow will become running again. And then it will automatically issue the credential to my wallet. So on here, you can see I have been offered a credential from Paradym with these fields. And again, the workflow has gone into an on hold state because the credential has been offered, but it's not accepted yet. So I can now choose to accept it in my wallet. And once it has been added, I now have it in my wallet, and the workflow will complete. So now the credential has also been issued. This was the whole flow from issuing a credential. Cool. So the next thing we can do, and now we're getting really into a bit more advanced flows, but is we can trigger workflows on different things than just API. We could, for example, we could, for example, we can change this workflow to, instead of like run on a trigger type API, we could run this whenever a connection is completed. And we can then remove this part because we won't create a workflow anymore. We won't create a connection anymore in this workflow, but we will actually take it from the input. So this is a special one, and we have like two ways currently to trigger workflows. You can go to the docs again, and the first one is API execution, or through the UI, in which we'll just manually execute the workflow whenever you invoke one. But another one, how we can run workflows, is based on agent events. And agent events is, for example, whenever a connection has been completed, or when a credential has been issued. So you can run side tests after issuing a credential. For now, if I run this same one, I save this, I can now go to the execution step. And as you can see, I can't execute it anymore because we don't have an API trigger. It's triggered based on events. And the event is that whenever a connection is created. So I can write another workflow that creates a connection that will then trigger that other event. And this shows how different workflows can trigger each other to trigger the events that you want. So I'll create a workflow called create invitation. And in here, I'm gonna have a trigger type API. I don't need any input, and I'll add a single action. And instead of create connection, I'll now use create invitation. So we just create the invitation and we don't wait for the connection to complete. And in here, I can provide attributes. And the attributes that I will provide is reusable, which means this invitation can be used multiple times, as often as you want it to be used. This way, I can basically create a public invitation to connect to us that can be printed on a QR code and can be reused whenever needed. So I publish it, I execute it, and it will start running again. So I have an invitation URL here now. And if I open my Paradym wallet again, I create a QR code from this, and I will run this, scan this QR code. It will again start loading the invitation. And as you can see, I again received a credential from Paradym. Not because this workflow ran, but instead the other workflow that I built to issue the event credential that now triggers on a connection completed has been executed, and I can accept this again. So this way you have multiple ways to trigger workflows, and depending on your needs, like you can customize how workflows run.